Hello, my name is Anthony Jones, and I'm the associate pastor here at Ojai Presbyterian Church. Today we're continuing our Lenten journey through the Gospel of Mark with our devotion. And today we'll be looking at Mark chapter 6, verses 30 through 44, a section often referred to as Jesus feeding the 5,000. Now, this actually happens to be the text we looked at this last week with our high school students in our final lesson from a curriculum called Faith in an Anxious World. This is a curriculum put out by Fuller Seminary that brought together the School of Psychology and the School of Theology to help young people make sense and to work through their anxiety in light of being followers of Jesus. In the first week, we talked about what it meant to look inward when we feel anxious, to locate and to name the anxiety that we experience, and to also see that Jesus is with us in those moments. In the second week, we talked about what it means to look upwards, to bring that anxiety to God, and to think about how God might be working in the midst of those times. And then in our third week, we talked about looking outward, finding people in our circles and in our lives that we trust, to whom we can bring our anxiety. And then this last week, in this section of Mark chapter 6, we talked about what it means to be people who reach out to others who are experiencing anxiety. Now, our text today is from Mark 6, and it starts with a tired group of people. Jesus and the disciples are worn down from all the ministry they have been doing, and they decide to get away for a time of rest. Now, as they go off to do that, the people follow. They are enchanted by Jesus' message and decide to follow him to learn more. So enchanted and enthralled by his message, they end up forgetting to bring food. And in that moment, the disciples come to Jesus and say, "The people are hungry. We need to send them away." And Jesus tells them, "No, you go and feed them." Now, I wonder what it was like for those disciples to hear that. I wonder what sort of anxiety they felt in that moment. Certainly, feeding 5,000 people would bring about a lot of anxiety. It was 8 months' wages, something they just didn't have. So instead, they gather together some loaves of bread and some fish and give it to Jesus. And Jesus does what Jesus does and performs a miracle, providing food for all that are there. But Jesus also does what Jesus does, and he invites the disciples to participate in bringing about his kingdom. He has them go and feed them. The disciples are sent out to organize the people and gives them the food. Certainly, this is something Jesus could have done on his own. But instead, Jesus invites those who follow him to participate in his kingdom building. Now, I wonder after that moment, how empowered those disciples felt. Even in the midst of their lack of faith, they still had enough faith to go find some bread and fish. And in that little bit of faith, Jesus worked his miracles, and Jesus invited them into the process, because they are made in God's image. We are made in God's image. And part of being God's image bearers is to participate in God's work in building the kingdom here and now. So this week, as you go through this season of Lent, as we journey together to Good Friday and to Easter, think of the places in which God is calling you to bring about God's kingdom. Where are the places that need God's light and life in your world? And how might you bear God's image and bring hope to those places?